This project is made possible by support from the National Endowment for the Arts, the Missouri Arts Council, and the Kansas City Art Institute. Welcome to the Mother Ann podcast, where women who are both artists and mothers discuss their diverse experiences as creators and caregivers. I'm Eleanor Lim-Midyett, project manager and co-curator of the Mother Ann Project and assistant professor of liberal arts at the Kansas City Art Institute. I'm also the mother of 4 sons. Each episode features discussions with artists and other individuals involved in the Mother Ann exhibition, which runs from September 5th to November 21st, 2025 at the Leedy-Voulkos Art Center in Kansas City, Missouri. The exhibit and the podcast disrupt preconceived notions that parenthood diminishes one's artistic practice and celebrate motherhood as a source of expansive creative potential.
And now I'm bringing my own daughters into his studio, and they are painting on his canvases, and I'm over here like, don't use too much of that. And he's like, just let them be. This is, let them create.
In this episode, I speak with Stephanie Leedy and Erin Woodworth, a mother-daughter team who run the Leedy-Voulkos Art Center.
My name is Stephanie Leedy. I am the daughter of Jim Leedy, who was the founder of the Leedy-Voulkos Art Center. I am the director here and the owner. I help choose shows, pretty much everything that involves gallery curation, installation, sweeping floors. I have been doing this for about 20 years now.
And I'm Erin Woodworth. I'm the gallery manager here. I am Jim Leedy's granddaughter and Stephanie's daughter. And I assist in doing all the same things that my mom mentioned, curating, scheduling shows, installing all the things here. And we have 2 other staff members here who help tremendously as well.
Can you share a little bit about Leedy-Voulkos Art Center and your mission?
When my father bought these buildings, he taught at the Art Institute for many years, and he would see his students leave if they didn't go to graduate school, which, a lot of them did, but the ones that didn't would stay. There wasn't really a community to keep them together. And, artists like to critique each other's work and be together. So he bought these buildings in order to do that. And he had a vision of creating a community down here. So when the gallery has grown, just physically, but also, I'd say sort of historically too, because we've been here for so long now.
Mm-hmm. Stephanie, your dad, Jim Leedy, was obviously a major influence in your life. Can you talk a little bit about how he inspired your path as an artist?
I kind of feel like it wasn't a choice necessarily. That's not the right word, but I think I never thought of doing anything else. Maybe a veterinarian at some point, but what kid doesn't want to be a vet at some point in their life? No, I just was always around him creating. I would watch him paint. I would watch him fire kilns. I was, just always there. And so when it came to actually deciding to go to art school, I got out of high school early in order to do it. I wasn't a very good high school student. And it was just sort of always that thing that I thought I was going to do. I really went into the fiber department first and then found myself, it's like I learned to weave, and then it's like, okay, I've learned to do this.
What's next?
Yeah, what's next? I want to build something with my hands. So then, since he taught in the sculpture department, it was a little awkward probably at first, but I love being in that department. And it wasn't awkward for long. And because I had grown up with him and knew what he would have to say to me artistically or suggestions. I really spent a lot more time with Dale Eldred. He was the chairman of the department, and so learning from him.
So Stephanie, growing up in this creative household, how did that shape the way that you see the world and how you interact in the world?
Growing up with him, I was very influenced by him. My way of thinking, artistically, politically, everything. It was the Vietnam War, I remember that. I remember riots here in Kansas City, and but I also had a father that was so unique, and our house was so unique that I often tell this story that if I asked kids to come and spend the night, their parents were a little reluctant because there were maybe some dead animals hanging, like part of sculpture, and parents couldn't understand it. So I definitely knew he was something special. And we would go on road trips, and we'd pull over and pick up dead animals on the road and throw them in a plastic bag and put them on top of the car, and then come home and dry them out and use the bones and stuff, There were a few times that I would ask him, are you sure that's not our cat? Is that our iguana lizard? No, remember we buried that cat out in the backyard. I was like, okay, I just had to trust him and believe him.
So Erin, you obviously are part of this really important legacy, artistic legacy, and that was part of your upbringing as well. So how did that shape the way that you see the world and how you interact?
Yeah, so I would say the way that my sister and I were brought up, with my grandfather being who he is and my mom being an artist herself, it was normal for us, but we also knew that it was unique as well. So, we didn't have any other friends with parents who, had sculptures and paintings all over their home, or who were eccentric, or who sort of had that creative mindset. But I would say that I ended up going to school for interior design. So I sort of shifted my thinking towards like this, it's a creative field and mindset, but going through design classes and drawing classes and the foundations through the fine arts department at KU is where I ended up. It was, I remember some art project, some assignment, and I was like, Mom, this project has to do with light. Can you maybe give me some, and it was probably really hard for her to not just be like, let's do this, but subtly giving suggestions along the way. But going like back to childhood, all my friends were also always very intrigued with going out to the lake house, which is where my mom grew up and he lived, because there was so much to see, and it was just a very unique environment to be in. And that's probably just the feedback from like friends. I would probably think that that's probably where I started to be like, oh yeah, like I guess this is different. This is special. And then when his book was published and there's a documentary made about him, like that sort of elevated his status, I think, in my mind. And then coming down here, growing up, when First Fridays really started becoming popular, we would come and help serve. We wouldn't serve the wine, but we would, we would be there, and we would just be running around like we owned the place. And that was really fun and unique. And now I have 2 daughters, and they are sort of now doing the same thing. But that was just a different, we've always just been involved here.
So Erin, was there ever a moment when you were in your grandpa's studio that really stuck with you, or you saw a piece that he made that really resonated with you and, that you remember even to this day?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that there was a specific piece, but I do remember when he had a show at the Grand Arts. It was his war wall and a huge series on his experience being in the war. And there were some dark, it was a dark topic. It was, his fears and anxieties and all of that from being in the war. So that just visually sort of stuck with me when I was younger. But then fast forwarding, and now I'm bringing my own daughters into his studio, and they are painting on his canvases and with who knows what material and just enjoying themselves. And he is there witnessing it, but not guiding them, not instructing them. I'm over here like, don't use too much of that. And he's like, just let them be. This is, let them create. And so that was a really fun memory that I have in his studio, just a couple blocks from here, that we got to share together as a family. And there was always multiple people there, and it was, socializing and creating. Sometimes they'd have some clay out on a wheel. People would be, creating things on their own. And it was just fun to expose them to that sort of freedom, creative freedom. And, Grandpa always said, no limits, do whatever you want. They liked that answer.
So art was just always a way of life for you.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, was there a time when you were in your dad's studio, or just, throughout the course of, interacting with him, that there was a piece or just a series of work that really impacted you?
I think it was 77, 78 in there. Kansas City was trying to revitalize downtown again. And this was during a time when there wasn't much going on. For decades, there wasn't much going on. It was called City in Celebration. And he was asked to make some sculptures that they were actually made out of parachute material. And they were built on the lawn at the Art Institute. And they were beautiful, very colorful. And they hung between the Commerce Bank building downtown and City Hall. And there were two of them. They were at least a football field long, however long. They were huge. And that was right before I graduated, but I'll never forget those. There were people downtown. Walt Bodine, I remember, down on the ground, and everybody's waiting for these big pieces to come out, and they'd blow in the wind, and they're beautiful.
She helped install them as well.
Yeah. This was back when you could walk up on a building with a bunch of students. No hard hats, no safety equipment. So I'll never forget those. He worked in every different kind of medium, that there was, but that, and then the Grand Arts show too, about his experience in Korea, and he enlisted, and he was a photographer in the Korean War. So
he had to be right where the action was, and that was probably the most traumatizing, part of being a photographer. And when he came back from the war, he would have nightmares, and then once he created these pieces and honored those nightmares, he says he stopped having them. So it was just that release of trauma, and but putting it in an artistic form, and probably allowing others to share that with him. But that was a pretty...
He was always doing something different. He would move from one thing to the next, just amazing that his lungs didn't give out long before. He worked with resins, there was clay dust,
So you graduated from KCAI's sculpture department. So can you talk a little bit about your experience there, and what was that conversation like when you told your dad that you wanted to go to the Kansas City Art Institute?
Well, he was happy, he was pleased. I often wonder, when I decided to go into the sculpture department, department if he was like, oh, yikes, you know. Like I have to behave myself or something, you know, my daughter's going to be there. Yeah.
He probably needed that though.
I think I never worked with clay. That was his thing. I never painted. I never did anything abstract. I was very geometric. I did big work when I was at the Art Institute here, kinetic pieces, wind pieces, and even when I went to graduate school.
How many other female sculpture students at the time?
So, I mean, back then, this was 70s, there weren't as many, but, I don't know, maybe, gosh, I'm trying to think how many were, like 20 maybe, something like that. I mean, there were quite a few. The women there were working, we were working with steel, we all wore steel-toe boots, and we were right in there, and Dale loved that, and so did my dad, and we were encouraged to work with all different kinds of materials, and I never felt excluded because I was female.
So, Erin, having your mom as a sculptor and a practicing artist, how did that impact your artistic journey and, what you wanted to pursue in college and where you wanted to pursue that education?
So, I don't know, interior design just sort of felt kind of like a normal path for me. You have that sense of creativity, but also the problem-solving aspect of interior design. I just remember even when I was younger, sitting at the dining room table, and I'm like, what should I draw? I had a piece of paper and a pencil, what should I draw? I'm just gonna draw what I'm looking at. So I didn't realize I was doing perspective drawings, but I was doing, interior perspective drawings back when I was in elementary school. Then as I got a little bit older and I was using materials on my own, I started to, I could create this house out of popsicle sticks and, just doing little things like that. But my mind went to how do people interact with spaces? And then that sort of seemed like the natural progression to go into interior design. KU has a great program. Also socially, like my friends were going there. I'm a twin, so my twin sister and I went to KU together and had our freshman year together. I did 5 years there, graduated with an interior architecture degree. And then that was in 2010, and then started looking for jobs, right? So unfortunately, that time, the big architecture firms here in Kansas City were having to drop their interior design departments, and it was a very poor time to be looking for a job. And so after some searching around, the current art director here at the Leedy-Voulkos Art Center was moving away. My mom was more involved here at that point, and so she kind of proposed, like, well, would you like to come work at the Leedy-Voulkos Art Center with me? And I was like, at first, like, that I don't feel like I have the qualifications. Like, I've grown up here, yes, but I've been away for so long. I don't know how things work. And so she was like, don't worry. And then the former director here kind of held my hand and was like, this is how we do things here. You can do your own thing, but this is how I do it. And so between, my mom and I working together and having a few more people here as well, it all made sense. So I was carrying on, the art gallery portion of the family, and then so now we're third generation, and then I have 2 daughters, and now we're fourth generation. And yeah, I've been here ever since, but I'm able to use my interior design degree in the curation of art. So I don't curate every single show, but I do enjoy laying out work and seeing how things work together, and just that visual element that, you learn in design and color and, all of those things. And I am applying quite a bit of my interior design degree here in the gallery every month. So
having that artistic background and having that natural creative problem solving. How does that apply to your parenting and being moms?
Now that my daughters they're 8 and 11 years old, just working through not only like their social life at school, but also my 8-year-old, she's very creative, but letting them know that if you make a mistake, it's okay. There's going to be another way to solve this problem. And that, we always say, well, Papa Jim would always say, there's no such thing as mistakes in art, so maybe you'll discover something new. Maybe this accident that maybe just because it didn't turn out the way you thought it would doesn't mean that it can't go another direction and be even better. So there's kind of all these little life lessons that we sort of still say at the dinner table, like, Papa Jim would say this, and so now my 8-year-old and my 11-year-old both I think it's easier to remind them it's okay to make mistakes, and maybe it's not even a mistake. Maybe it's just not what you expected it to be.
So art is just this way of parenting, like actually providing a roadmap for parenting and...
Yeah, like the process of creating a piece, there's usually not a manual that you follow. There's not a manual that you follow when you're a mom. No 2 projects are the same. No 2 kids are the same. Everybody, you have to sort of adapt and provide them with different resources along the way. So I feel like that's a parallel that we find.
Stephanie, how about you? Was there ever a moment when your art practice also gave you kind of a roadmap for how to parent the twins?
I remember Dale Eldred coming to the house and telling me that they were the best 2 pieces I had ever done. I didn't do them by myself. So. I think that Erin grew up, and Brenna, I always had materials available for them to, work with, and hoping that was maybe a distraction when there were times when things weren't going right. Like, well, let's go pull out some crayons and colors and let's do this. Distraction, I guess. I think that's what she does with her kids. Now, sometimes it's good to just get your kids' minds off of whatever they think the problem. The world is ending right now. It's like, no, it's not. And they're easily distracted by something artistic that they can go do.
So always having that space to create and be a creative.
Well, we had a downstairs basement, like, probably, I'm hoping lots of parents would, that was just bins full of paints and colors and, crayons and yarn and, tables that we'd tie-dye,
Friends would come over and it would be like, let's go down to the basement so we can make something. We didn't ever have any goals, like what, but it was a fun little escape. And my dad had he built model cars, and he had a dark room because he was a photographer as well. And so he was also had that creative eye, and attention to detail. And so the downstairs was just strictly for making, which was really nice.
Great. I want to back up just for a minute. Stephanie, you studied sculpture at Tyler School of Art, and then you spent a lot of time in the glass department. I've really been wanting to ask you this question. So can you explain to me what it means to bend neon and how you learned that process?
So while I was in the sculpture department at Tyler, and I spent a lot of time in the glass blowing department because I was dating somebody in there also, so I'd met someone, I have to be honest here. Then I was totally infatuated with, I couldn't decide whether it was him or the glass that I was most infatuated with, right? And because the Art Institute didn't have glass, I had never seen it. So in order to blow glass, it's such a group effort. You always have to have a partner, or it's way easier if you do. So I just found myself being drawn into that. I think it was almost like the experience of just, again, like being in a group of people doing the same thing. You have an idea, and at any point in time, that idea could just fall off your blowpipe and end up on the floor. But I could really never figure out I found myself blowing into molds and then taking these pieces and dissecting them up and doing that whole geometric thing that I'd done with my large scale pieces. And then at some point in time, we did an exchange with Penn State. They actually had a neon facility at their school. And so it was the first time I'd ever put my hands on a piece of neon glass and put my fingers in the flames, and everybody came back with burnt fingertips. So then fast forward, I was using a lot of neon to light up some sculptural pieces I was making. So when I moved back here, I found a gentleman at Atlas Sign who taught me to bend neon. He didn't really teach me because he had never taught anyone before. So I just said, look, if I just show up every day, here's $500 for glass. And so I was there for months, and I bent tons of open signs. And then I went to, this is where I did find some discrimination in being a woman. I tried to find a job in a sign shop bending neon, and they were like, nope, you're not, nope. So I found some equipment because I couldn't find a shop to hire me. And sure enough, all these sign companies then started coming to me going, oh, I think, do you want to come to work for us now? I said, nope, but I'll subcontract for you. So I did that for, 12, 13 years.
Okay, so having twins, let's talk about that. So how did becoming a mother influence your creative process? And twins, that's a lot, obviously. So what particular challenges did you face, but also unexpected sources of inspiration?
I think my goal was to make sure that they always had the same amount of whatever it was, the same experience, I don't think I took one of them to the store without the other, or, they would also judge, there's more apples on your plate than mine. So
everything had to be fair.
Did you bring him to the neon shop?
I tried once to take them as babies. And I just realized it was impossible. The neon shop was very loud. There were pumps going, and so it wasn't like I could just stick them down. And I tried once. I brought a playpen. I thought I could do this.
I do remember when, my sister and I were sick. We'd have to stay home from school, but she couldn't stay home from work. So what do? You bring your kid with you, your sick kid with you to work. Luckily, I was able to do that with my own daughters. It's not just on sick days, but from infant to toddler, about when they were walking-ish. I was able to bring the girls with me to the art center, and Grandma was there to help me, but also exposing them, whether they really knew it or not that young, exposing them to artwork and colors and textures, and they learned how to walk, in the gallery. They had a lot of firsts here. Yeah, so a lot of galleries around here, they have gallery dogs, but we had gallery babies. And so now it's funny when I see people out at, First Fridays, how are your daughters? I remember when they were babies here, and they're now 8 and 11, so it's just one of those perks of the job, I think, that we were lucky enough to have that flexibility to bring the girls here and have them grow up in that space. And then my grandpa, he would make appearances on First Fridays, and then they got to see him interacting with everyone here who were so eager to talk to him. And so they got to witness that sort of, local fame that he had, that presence that he had here on First Fridays and as an artist. So we're lucky to have this space to do that in. And yeah, generationally, it's been pretty great.
Great. Is there a show or a memory that you have of the girls being in the gallery that, is really memorable for you? Or
probably some of the most fond memories would be, I can't remember if it was Brooklyn or Avonlea, but we had those walker things on wheels, but it'd be, these babies learning to walk, and then my grandpa wheeling around in his wheelchair. So they would just be rolling around together through the gallery. They'd, have little races together. But it was, I would say probably in that 1-year-old age range with each of them were here. And then when my grandpa was here, that was pretty special. And just also being exposed to different types of artwork, and also having them witness me as a working, mom, and then seeing grandma do all the things that she can do. Hopefully they feel limitless in whatever they decide to do.
Erin, you were just talking about, generations growing up at the Leedy-Voulkos Art Center. Lots of times I think when people think about a gallery space, the white cube, it's a place where children really don't belong. Yeah. But can you all talk about your vision for Leedy-Voulkos and how maybe creating a space at the gallery that, responds to that?
I mean, I grew up here, so it's like, well, I was a kid here once. Now my kids can be kids here. I think we are a little bit more of a casual setting to view art. Like, we never want to be intimidating or, strict or any of that. We want people to enjoy themselves when they come in. We want people to, maybe this is the first time that they are thinking about buying an original piece of artwork. We're sort of trying to blend, that idea of just keeping it low key and low stress, I guess. And I think that's what my grandfather he was always wanting more people to see more art, and that's how First Friday grew as well. He just wanted to expose anyone and everyone to artwork, whether they sort of knew what they were walking into or not. So he was always very supportive of having the kids be involved, whether it was our kids, his friends' kids, his colleagues' kids. So it sort of never really felt like we were breaking the rules when we had kids in here. Yeah, we've had so many family memories here and big events here that it just was sort of natural to have the girls be here with us. And now they attend First Fridays, and now they're making their own little creations and trying to sell them in the shop. And so they're sort of there's that next layer that they are now participating more in the First Friday environment. And so that's fun to watch too.
So you just mentioned, Erin, how Emily and Brooklyn are showing these creative tendencies. Yeah. And so can you just talk a little bit about the value you see in exposing them to the art environment early on, and how that's maybe inspired them to start their own creative practice? I know you said you took them to see A Match Made in Heaven at the Nerman, and they really loved that.
That was fun. Yeah, so just exposing them not only to the artwork that we have here at the gallery, but beyond our walls, I think is very important. So yeah, we took him out to the Nerman recently, and it's always like, what do I feel like they can relate to? So with that show out there, it was the costuming and the different materials that aren't typically used for clothing. So I could tell my youngest daughter, Brecklin, was like, what's that made out of? Oh, I'm going to start collecting that now so I can make, the wheels are turning. And so it was fun to see like a polished version of like because she's a creator. Her room is her studio. It is. But I actually made her a sign. It was like a little framed sign, and it says, "Creatives don't make messes. They have ideas laying around everywhere." And I pulled that from actually my grandpa's wife, Molly, had posted that same quote, and I was like, that is so true. Like there are projects. There are just projects everywhere. She has started this one, about to start this one, but hasn't finished, So I think it's fun to show them what a full series of work might look like. And then Evanly, my oldest, she enjoys making as well. She's more I would say like organized in a way of like, making a bracelet or something and having it be, a certain way. But she kind of has that like sales manager side. So she's older too. So it's fun to see the difference in their personalities and then also what they like to create, because they both love making things and now turning over into what little entrepreneurial, tendencies.
So in
they
other
have.
words, they'll both fit in well here.
Yeah, we'll have jobs for them somehow, whether it's showing work or managing, the art center. I think they would both fit in
So
nicely.
a family affair and the continuation of the Jim
Yeah,
Leedy legacy.
absolutely.
Then. Yeah, I love that. What drew you to support and host the Mother Ann project and exhibition? We pitched the project to you all, and you were really welcoming and really supportive of it.
I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, what a great idea for a show, because I'm 65, 66 almost, and I've known so many women and artists because I grew up in the art world and went to art school, and I keep in touch with a lot of my friends who have had kids that are now, their kids are grown, and I just remember thinking and watching, and as I was keeping in touch with them, like, how are they really able to do that? Like, I was just amazed at the women that continued to make artwork, and I was probably a little jealous too, but I was just fascinated with it also. So I think their stories are all going to be different, and I just thought it was such an interesting idea and important to recognize those mothers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then knowing that this is mother-daughter run, family-owned, operated, and Debbie is a mother, and her daughters are very involved here as well. It just sort of seemed like a natural fit, and this is something that could continue to go on for generations. So it's sort of it just made sense that we would be hosting this type of exhibition.
It really has felt like a natural fit. So speaking of Jim Leedy's legacy, it does probably come with some kind of sense of responsibility. When you're curating exhibitions for the Leedy-Voulkos Art Center, do you follow certain guiding principles or a shared vision? I know Debbie Barrett-Jones, for example, has talked about how in many ways you also have provided this sort of mothering care for the artists and a lot of the people here. So, yeah. So
She said that about me?
she did.
Oh, that's nice.
She did. And Courtney did too.
Oh.
Yeah.
She's like the mother of the not only the art center, but yeah, we have tenants who live here, and it's maybe younger students who maybe they're away from their families, and she has like sort of this magnetic motherly vibe, I guess. So whether she wants to or not, it's sort of, people seek her advice and her opinion, and So she's
That's
she's
fun.
that
That's it's just I don't know. I think as mothers you kind of do that without thinking about it really. You're always wanting to help because you've seen your kids there, like going through those same problems, or you've gone through those same problems. Again, maybe it's a personality thing, but
yeah, and my grandpa had that kind of mentor mentality as well. Like he was always teaching someone something, whether it was, art history or ceramics. But even beyond, after he retired, he always would say, like, I'm not done teaching. Like you teach on different levels.
Just on his DNA, so he always,
he was always.
he was very personable with all of his students. Again, they would come back years later and he would always remember their names and, kids. I mean, he's just a big kid himself, really. Talk about touching artwork. He was the worst of all. My father had very long fingernails, which he would always say, these are my tools. But as he got older, he wasn't using his tools as much. So they got really long. I think there was just something. He was also very fascinated with them. But he would go along and push him in his wheelchair and like, push me up to that piece, and then he'd just start touching it.
Sir, please don't touch the artwork.
Stop.
But going back to your question about curating the art center, the shows, he had full trust in what my mom, myself, and Debbie would book for shows and artists. And so a lot of them end up being kind of like artists maybe that we've shown 5 years prior, 10 years prior. So there was sort of a longevity that, he loved to see that artist's new series of work. And so he was very supportive in that. But I don't know, maybe he was just saying this, but it felt like in his eyes, we could do no wrong. But also we were executing everything that he had built and established. So, we were here daily during all the open hours and hanging the shows and promoting and doing all the things that, he hoped would happen. And the fact that it's generational and still in the family, I think he was very proud of. So,
I mean, it's great to have the Mother Ann project and exhibition housed here, especially because you all are a mother-daughter team. What are some of the best aspects of working together as a mother-daughter team? Do you have any fun stories that you recall working together? And also, are there sometimes challenges? So, yeah.
Yeah. What challenges do you have with me? Probably my timeliness.
I'm still the mother that makes lunch.
She provides lunch, which is a big part.
I've noticed that.
She's a great boss. She hasn't fired me yet, which is good. I think any other, I don't know.
Any fun stories? Any fun memories?
There's a really fun one that actually took place in here.
I don't know what you're about to say.
So we had a group of high school kids in here. It was some other gallery person bringing them through. Mm-hmm. And they were in here talking about Jim Leedy, and the room wasn't quite like this, and it wasn't this particular painting, but they were all standing up in this location. And Erin and I looked at each other because we were talking about this painting, and we realized there's something not right.
There's something different about this.
Something different about that painting. And we looked, and there was a bat.
A tiny
attached to it.
Little bat just sleeping, minding his own business, but his little feet were clung to a paint clump on the
Any of those clumps could look like a bat.
Right?
A live bat?
A live bat. But he was sleeping and he was small, and to the untrained eye, it blended in perfectly.
Nobody knew.
Well, now we've come full circle with the bones and the animals.
But I mean, even if it was supposed to, if was supposed to be there, right?
So we were both
We just had this
calm.
intuition of like, let's change the topic and move the students out into a different room, and we will manage this later. Because over our lifetime, we have caught many stray
animals of sorts.
mice and who knows what else, the cat brings in or
We
whatever.
had a raccoon in here once.
Yeah. So we sort of intuitively were just like, don't say anything and let's move along. And we ended up, after they left, then the panic, struck, and we were like, oh my God.
Erin's always the brave one, though. She went to capture it. And
Yeah. So we got it.
That's why.
We have a
That's
system.
why I have her around, to
yes,
capture bats.
Exactly. We have a system. So yeah, that was actually really, that was crazy. But we managed
Old
it.
buildings, Old
Yeah.
buildings have bats.
And this morning,
We had a bird in
we
here.
had a bird
this
in
morning.
here. My grandfather loved nature, so here we are, a little menagerie sometimes. But so we have a good time here, whether it's animals, kids,
Critters
critters,
and artist mothers.
artist mothers.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. It's been really great talking to you. And it definitely just what you believe in and just welcoming everybody and making everyone feel cared for. It really comes through. So I'm excited for the exhibition.
Yeah, we are too.
Us too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
This podcast was produced by Cleo Scroll Productions, with Kara Heitz as the director and Emily Milner as the audio engineer. Music is by Brooke Tooley and the Moon Travelers. The Mother and project team includes Eleanor Lim-Midyett, project manager and co-curator, Courtney Wasson, co-curator, Laura Berman, senior consultant, Stephanie Leedy, Leedy-Voulkos Art Center owner and mother of the Crossroads, Erin Woodworth, Leedy-Voulkos Gallery Manager, and Debbie Barrett-Jones, Leedy-Voulkos Gallery Assistant. An extra thank you to the Kansas City Artists Coalition, Distribution by Air Company, and Hotel Indigo for their support. Don't forget to listen to the other episodes of the Mother and podcast, and also remember to check out the Mother and exhibition, which runs from September 5th to November 21st, 2025 at the Leedy-Voulkos Art Center in Kansas City, Missouri. More information can be found on their website at www.leedy-voulkos.com. That's www.leedy-voulkos.com. Thanks for listening.